Hello and good evening, everyone. This is the Joshua Brown News Hour, and I am your host, Joshua Brown. Hope everyone had a good Wednesday. Today's broadcast is for October 9th, 2013. Just want to remind everybody, if you want to comment about the show, want to give us some feedback, we are available. Our email address for the show is talknewstalksports@gmail.com. If you have any specific news topics, articles, or anything to dealing with sports that you'd like to talk about, go ahead and also send us an email. Or if you'd like to call into the show and talk about a specific article or topic dealing with news, politics, or sports, go ahead and give us an email. Again, the email address is talknewstalksports@gmail.com. You can also listen to the show via our Tumblr website, joshbrownnewshour.tumblr.com, or our direct address, talknewstalksports.com, and that will send you over where you can directly download our episodes. Also available on iTunes, obviously, and through YouTube. The episodes are available. Just type in Joshua Brown News Hour in the YouTube search, and they will come up. Okay, so let's get started. And again, I'd like to go through a lot of different news sources here for the day. And because we're in the evening, a little bit slower of a news time right now. But this is from the Drudge Report. Their opening and top story: Eleanor stares down Obama. This is Eleanor Holmes Norton. She is a delegate in the United States Congress. Specifically, she is a United States House representative for the District of Columbia. So the story goes to a Washington Post article. This is by Ed O'Keefe. This is from the article. The delegate, Eleanor Holmes Norton, had what some colleagues called a heated exchange, and what she described as a conversation with President Obama during a White House meeting Wednesday afternoon regarding the district's budget constraints as a result of the partial government shutdown. So obviously something to do with her district needing some of the funds somehow deals with I imagine the shutdown more so because of her district in D.C. Let's see. She attended the meeting in the White House East Room with nearly 200 House Democrats, and was one of the handful given the opportunity to ask the president a question. When she was called upon, Norton pressed Obama to support a House-passed bill that would permit the district to use its locally raised tax funds to maintain operations until December 15th. So obviously there was some sort of bill. I know that the House Republicans have been pushing legislation to go forward kind of as a piecemeal basis, as the article alludes to, so that things can get passed and they're just not going to get voted on in the Senate, or even passed by Obama, as he has said himself that he would veto any legislation that was coming up in that sort of manner. So, a lot of these bills have been kind of odd that they've been coming up like this, because it's all symbolic. They're not going to get through the Senate. Obviously, they're not going to get signed, and there's no 2/3 majority to overturn that, especially at this time. So that they're all kind of like the article says, piecemeal funding bills that are getting pushed through. Now, what is odd here is obviously that this is a Democratic representative who was given the opportunity to speak with Obama. So it'll be interesting to see what the Democrats do from their perspective, because obviously it's this is a story from the Washington Post. Keeping in mind it's linked from the Drudge Report, so I'm not sure what actually can be considered a heated exchange. Obviously, there's still going to be differences. She has to show a type of fervent manner for her delegates, and if I were in her position, I would probably do something similar and arguing for my constituents, because I still want to be seen, not that I'm just in step, but I think right now especially what would interest me is how they treat her in this regard, because the Democrats need to, I would think, appear to have their house in order, especially when the Republicans, obviously do not. So, again, and what is even more interesting, looking up information about her position, she's been in that position since 1991. So, 23 years, excuse me, 22. In that position, she held office under Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan in the late 70s, early 80s as chairperson of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So a lot of experience in government for some time now. But what's interesting is that being a delegate in the District of Columbia in the House, it's actually a non-voting position. So she can serve on committees, she can speak on the floor of the House. She's actually not permitted to vote on the final passage of any legislation. So it seems that obviously she has, looking through her history here, has done some numerous things for civil rights and women's rights and the organizations that she's been a member to. But it seems that in this particular situation, that it could possibly be being used as that she's just expressing herself for her constituents here, and really she has no control of the these passing anyway, because she's not voting. So not really sure where this is going to coming into play. I know that just because this issue is going on doesn't mean that the Democrats have to be happy with everything that Obama is. I think that's obviously something that's a farce. And again, I think as a House representative, you have to kind of play to what's going on. You have to play your own constituents as well. So we'll still have to see where this types of story goes. Another story from the Drudge Report, but I know it's going to be a little bit easy to tell what side of the story they're on, just reading from here. But it's on California. California's Brown, that's Jerry Brown, the governor, signs bill permitting non-physician abortions. Governor Jerry Brown of California signed AB 154 on Wednesday, legalizing non-physician abortions in the state. And I'll read you the full article because it's from Breitbart, so you'll be able to kind of tell where they stand on it. The legislation, which had been pushed vigorously by Planned Parenthood, no doubt about it there, had been strongly opposed by pro-life groups and some physicians, arguing that it had amounted to legalizing back-alley abortions for profit. In a statement, Governor Brown boasted that AB 154 was one of the 7 bills signed Tuesday to support the health and well-being of women in California. So, coming from the Drudge Report and this is obviously not viewed in a good light. But I will say, and I'll piggyback off of something Bill Maher had on his show. I'm not sure if it was last week's show, but 2 weeks ago. And that was that in California things are getting done. So whether or not, there is a agreement on both sides, the people have seemed to vote for local representation that are very left and liberal leaning. I think in terms of the states, I know that states like Colorado and Washington have passed marijuana, and I think that's just a few years away and having to deal with more so of the growers here in California. But in almost every other subject, California has really been a very forward-leaning state in terms of liberalism and almost to a socialistic aspect. Obviously, still, quite a ways off from that. It's more of a new Democratic Party, tinged, more of the Republican side of it, more conservative aspect of the liberalism. But still, when you have, what Obama has been doing in keeping of former conservative policies that, I think most people thought he had been voted in there to get rid of. California in comparison, and someone like Jerry Brown seems like they're from a different party completely. And that's a little bit about what's going on in the Republican Party, but it's just not so drastic. When you have so many different states that are so at so many different places, in that evolution, I think that's why you see the president, obviously always come to the middle. But anyway, this is an interesting story because going back through, I went through Google, and Planned Parenthood has actually information on the bill. So you want to always look at it from both sides, looking at it from that perspective. And then I'll read a little bit here from Planned Parenthood, just so you can get an idea of what the other side, obviously people that are in favor here, what the bill addresses. So Assembly Bill 154 will address the current shortage of healthcare professionals able to provide early abortion care in California. It will authorize trained nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives, and physician assistants to provide comprehensive first trimester abortion care, which is in the scope of their licenses. So first of all, just from reading this, and again, I would like to read the bill itself, and I will do that. To make sure and double check here, but we're talking about first trimester abortions here to begin with, and I don't think that's anything new. Eventually reading through here, it's a lot of the same types of things, but what we're talking about, it's going to let's see here exactly. Expands access to early abortion services in California. Reflects the best scientific research. That seems a little bit like a little bit of fluff. Don't really know what that means specifically. Minimizes targeted statutory regulation of abortion. Again, a lot of different concepts there. Not sure what that exactly means, but and then reaffirms California leadership on women's health issues as anti-choice legislation sweeps the nation. So again, not something really hard to follow there. So I went and I dug a little bit deeper here. So the San Jose Mercury News has an article that kind of breaks it down a little bit. And this is by Josh Richmond. Bills increasing abortion access signed by Governor Jerry Brown. The AB 154 by Assemblywoman Toni Atkins of San Diego would let nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives, and physician assistants with special training perform abortion by aspiration, in which the uterus contents are suctioned out, which is the most common kind of first trimester abortion. So obviously not, let's face it, nobody wants to have to deal with things like this, and that's obviously something in our society that we just haven't been able to come to grips about it and talk about openly. However, we have to look at it from this perspective. We're still talking about something in first trimester. This is nothing new. This is simply the fact that, we're letting people with a different title being able to handle these processes. So obviously, people that are in need of these services, don't need to have an actual doctor there when, these people who, again, the other articles are phrasing it, and I already know what the Republicans are saying, but again, when you have such control like the Democrats do in California, it kind of makes it more of a moot point. So, it's hard to say how this is going to play out the long term, because if it does swing back, this is going to be a huge issue that can come back to haunt the Democrats. But for now, that they have these things coming through, with the health care, with other things that have taken into effect since Jerry Brown has come in. We've seen some drastic changes, and I think marijuana is going to be something that's next. But again, that'll be a different topic for a different day. So we want to take a look at a lot of different news sources. And again, as we go through here, all of the links to the information that I come across, I'm going to have on our show notes. Again, that's available at talksports.com. Okay, so it looks like we're just, I was going to be talking about the Huffington Post. Had some things about the House here, but we've just come across a story here. Ali Zadine has reportedly been kidnapped. This is reported about 27 minutes ago. The Libyan Prime Minister was taken by armed men. This is a story from Reuters. Again, about 27 minutes ago. And this is out of Dubai. I'll go ahead and go through the article. It's very short amount of information here because it's still reports are still coming in. It looks like armed men have kidnapped Libyan Prime Minister Ali Zadine from a hotel in Tripoli. Two Arab television channels reported on Thursday. Abu Dhabi-based Sky News Arabia quoted Libyan secretary sources as saying that Zaydin was seized from a hospital where he was staying in the Libyan capital and taken to an unknown destination. Dubai-based Al Arabiya carried a similar report. So, wow, this is just something that is really going to be throwing a wrench into, obviously the rest of the national and international politics that are going on. Libya had been really the last thing that you want to have to happen here. Something that had been a little bit more dormant than normal to come back up amid everything else going on. Especially, we talked about in the last episode, North Korea also coming up. Obviously, the issue with the debt ceiling that we haven't even gotten to today yet is a huge issue that is being played, in the national spectrum of politics, and now we have this kidnapping. A lot of other sites that I'm going through at the time here haven't even updated yet. So that was obviously through the Huffington Post via the Reuters here story. So if I get any more information during the podcast, I'll definitely be updating you. But just to go back to some other things we're talking about here, this is via the Huffington Post. And again, this goes back to Boehner, the whole Republican versus Democrat spectrum of what's going on in America. The Republican Party's rating plummets to record low. So this is a story by Ariel Edwards Levy and Mark Blumenthal at the Huffington Post. They have a story here about some Gallup poll numbers. Let me go through the information here. So it looks like right now polling for the Republican Party down 10% from last month. Gallup called it a record low, and saying this was the lowest favorable rating measured from either party since Gallup began asking this question in 1992. While the Democratic Party isn't popular either, it did fare better with 43% of Americans approving of the party, down a comparatively small 40 points from September. So the Republican Party was at 28% favorable in this same poll here. So obviously pretty relatively low. And I would say, 43%, now we're getting close to that 50% marker. Again, like I said, I do like to get as much information as I can. I was listening to O'Reilly yesterday, and he had Charles Krauthammer on. Krauthammer had very similar numbers, actually had it even a little bit worse, but he had it quoting a different poll in the reverse. So the Republicans unfavorable or disagreement on the way that the government was being handled was at 70%, while Democrats was at 50%. So 50% for the Democrats, 70% disapproval rating for the Republicans. Even he commented how high that was, and obviously these numbers are not good either. But again, saying that the Democrats was 50%. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, how close have the last two elections been? Even the last four. I mean, 50%. You're going to have people that question you anyway. But 70%, and what is continuing to go on in the party has been ridiculous. But again, I don't think that the higher numbers should be. We're looking at issues here with both parties. There's absolutely no doubt, and even when you see or hear on like Bill Maher's show or other syndicated more liberal broadcasts, there are things that are obviously huge disagreements that are going on with the president. But at a certain point, you still have to understand, the overall goal and see what is acceptable to do in the government. And I think these numbers reflect a lot of what people are saying. And like I said, even Krauthammer didn't agree, obviously with the poll numbers, but to say the least of it, I mean, it was he did not approve of the strategy. So. Okay, so going in that same vein here, a lot of the talk has also been about how the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans, how the relationship has been as of late. Listening to Glenn Beck today, listened to his show early this morning, he was talking about the Senators Ted Cruz and Mike Lee kind of being taken out behind the woodshed and given a talking to by, I believe, Mitch McConnell, another congressman. I'm not sure if it was some House member or a Senate member that he would not name or could not name at the time. And basically, I guess it goes back to looking on his website now, later in the day, that he apparently broke and revealed a story. Now, again, I haven't really been following Glenn Beck as of recently. Since I've started this podcast, I've liked to kind of get a pulse on where everything's, where everyone's at. Even the Glenn Becks of the world, going from ultra conservative to ultra liberal, to see where everything is at. So my last interactions with Glenn Beck was even before he had been on Fox News. So wasn't really sure. I thought he was more on the fringe here, but this kind of story, and I'll tell you why in a second here, obviously, but this kind of caught my attention. So, as I mentioned earlier in the story, he had talked about, and I had read earlier, a lot of the more liberal sites, Huffington Post, had commented and brought out how they thought some of the Republicans were doing a good thing in talking to Ted Cruz and Mike Lee. So obviously Glenn Beck had used it to say that it was Karl Rove and trying to take back the party, get rid of these Tea Partiers. So today he breaks a story, and that was that the former CEO of FreedomWorks, I should say not former, but he is the still current former. Let me just get to the story here. It all began, Beck said, when what he believes was late August, when he was getting ready to do a number of events with FreedomWorks. It's about 4 p.m, and I get a call from the president of FreedomWorks, Matt Kibb, and I can hear the distress in his voice, Beck said. Kibb said, "Glenn, I've just been escorted out of my office by armed guards and told not to come back." So very dramatic, obviously. This is something he's said he's been holding back for over a year. He hasn't been able to share and is now doing so. And again, this is on the heels of when he's talking about these other forces that are trying to take out all these Tea Party members in the obviously in the Senate and the House. This is from the article now. There was a coup during the election, and it was powerful, Beck said. They were trying to get rid of the libertarian, Tea Party-minded power players, and first and foremost on that hit list was Matt Kibb and his allies. They didn't like the fact that FreedomWorks was cleaning house in the GOP. They were targeting people like Orrin Hatch. It didn't sit well with the Karl Roves of the GOP world. So that's where, right there, he gets to the Karl Roves of the GOP world. Back when he's talking about this event, and that was something he brought up also, talking about Mike Lee and Mitch McConnell working for Karl Rove. So and the reason this story interested me, I mean, these are views that I would have to say are fairly, extreme. Talking about, Karl Rove, his positioning with George Bush, I think, in the Republican Party, was a huge advantage. His, whether you like him or not, I think he was very smart strategically about what he did, and how he helped George Bush and how he saw things. So I think he was a popular figure. I know that there was some controversial things that he said. He came out, I believe, I'm not sure as necessarily an atheist, but somebody who was a non-believer, I believe. So I think he was doing time with Fox News as being a contributor. For all I know, he still may be there. Again, I'm not sure how, why he's coming out against this. So when I see Beck, I think, okay, he's way out. He's on this ultra-conservative. I'm not even sure if it's a conservative. I'm not sure where Beck is anymore because of all these things going on. So I'm just going through, and again, this will be on the show notes on the website. And he has an interview with Ted Cruz, a senator. I mean, Glenn Beck has this interview with Ted Cruz 5 minutes long on his show, and I believe it was from today. So, I had totally misjudged the effort, and it doesn't even seem that there's any type of veiling. Ted Cruz is going straight to the people that are voting him in. I mean, it's obviously that there is a connection there. And I think that they're not trying to hide it anymore. I mean, when you have, Senator Ted Cruz, I can understand, these, going on both of types of news programs. But I didn't expect for that to be with the Glenn Beck program. So, and they even addressed some of those numbers, the polling. They did talk about the things going on. Obviously, from the more, they had a very similar opinion on it. They did not disagree. But the explaining of some of those numbers, and let me get to this here. And again, these are from the AP. So we talked about the disapproval, the 50% to 70% from Krauthammer, but we also had an AP poll. Obama's approval was at 37%, and of course, that is down. However, Congress's approval rating is 5%. I mean, these numbers, to me, at least when they're aimed at a non-specific issue, they're aimed at these people. I mean, 5% approval rating for these people right now. I mean, there was another statistic the other day, 90% of them were voted in. I mean, everyone thinks that everyone else's representative is not any good, and then they move on. They don't care about it. So, I mean, these 5% approval rating, it's for everyone else's congressman. It's not mine. So that, I don't even know what 5% approval rating means anymore. What does that has no value. I mean, when you get into some of these other things that were asked in the survey, this reports here, only 30% approve of raising the debt ceiling, clean or otherwise. So only 30% of these people approve of raising the debt ceiling. I mean, that's just not an option. I don't know what people are otherwise thinking in this instance. This is not... these are not options that we're talking about here. These are things that need to happen. It's just unfortunate that that's what makes these poll questions so silly. It almost makes it, again, the 5% asking people questions when these are not even options. And speaking about the debt ceiling, I think that's the underlying issue. This budget problem is going to continue to be an issue when we're talking about the people not having income for the jobs yet. As long as this goes on, I know that they talked about the back pay already, and that's obviously important. But I mean, it just doesn't doesn't seem like there's any point to even asking some of those questions. If the voters don't understand, I mean, how many times have we had either a Republican or a Democrat come out and ask people about Obamacare, about the ACA, and call it the Affordable Care Act, or say who's responsible for the shutdown? I mean, the voters are obviously misinformed. So, why do we keep asking them? Why don't we have people in the government that actually go out and instead of ask people questions, how about they tell them and they give them information? And they say, hey, here's some information that's actually accurate, and go and spread this out, instead of saying, hey, let's see how we can make you look like an idiot on TV. I mean, come on, what are we even asking? The 5%, oh, I don't approve of my representative in Congress, as if I know what they do. These voters don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Not that they're doing it anyways, but I mean, come on, 5%, what are we asking these people these questions for? Sometimes it just gets to this ridiculous point. So we also look at other goings on in the world here. So again, looks like no new information about the Libyan Prime Minister as of yet. So as this goes on, we'll keep talking about it here, and we'll give you information. So in some world news, the country Azerbaijan, I believe it is pronounced, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, released election results before voting had even started. So big issue. Big issue. It's supposed to be actually held today. So this is a story from the 9th. From earlier today. It was supposed to be held today. And apparently the results got released before the voting was even started. Now the BBC, in looking up this story, they have a story that Ilham Aliyev claims election victory. And this is a story that was released also today, and it says with about 3/4 of the votes counted, Mr. Aliyev had won nearly 85%, the National Election Commission said. So it looked like that they rebroadcasted it, but apparently, and originally the story was from the Washington Post, they even have a story that links to a BBC headline called "The Predetermined President." So apparently, some very, very disturbing social unrest going on. I think a lot of people were talking about the shutdown and the NSA and the healthcare and the split between the Tea Party and Republicans and Democrats. So when you have all these things going on, you think in your American bubble, but also very much so in countries like Greece and some of these countries that are fighting for actual fair elections. There's a lot of different things going on, so always good to be kept informed about that. Sheesh, what's going on in the Middle East if this Libyan Prime Minister story is to be believed at first crack here. This could be really, really big news, obviously. Looks like now CNN is also reporting the same. Okay, so we'll take a look at a couple other stories here before we head in over to sports. So just to kind of wrap up about what we've been talking about, there's a story here from the New York Times. Republicans using shutdown to stake positions for potential 2016 bids. The piece is a little bit cynical. It's coming from more of a liberal perspective, but also with the perspective of these guys are doing everything for the purpose of getting elected. And the way that the system is set up now is that's their job, is to always do things to make them look like they're going to get elected, or things that make people want to elect them. That's their official job now. That's the way that the system has been put into place. Fair or unfair, they're doing that job instead of doing the job of researching this legislation and seeing what is best for everybody. They're put in these positions. So the article just goes into, obviously, it's almost become, during each election cycle, it sees who can top who. So you have, the article talks about, Marco Rubio. He was a big deal until the kind of came out against some of the immigration policies. Again, because of where he's a senator. Some of the other senators have a little bit more leeway. Ted Cruz. He had the cruising with Ted through that whole night, through the fake reading the Green Eggs and Ham. It talks about because a few weeks, how many weeks or months ago was it that Rand Paul was stand with Rand? That was a thing, and you had the filibuster there. You had the also talks about Governor Chris Christie. He was a favorable figure until he kind of got too close to Obama. Let's be serious. As soon as they get near Obama, it's over for them in the Republican Party. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Chris Christie ended up switching parties eventually, if because of this turn in the Republican Party. So it's actually a very interesting article too, just because of how intricate it goes into each of the different candidates, or at least the amount of candidates it talks about. Also talks about Governor Bobby Jindal, who I thought at the time could have been what the Republican Party needed. There was this kind of void, this gap that had been created, I think, after once people realized that McCain was not going to be viable anymore, and that the Tea Party just wasn't ready yet for the big stage. And Palin just couldn't be trusted because of everything there with family issues, just everything going on. There was this void there, and I remember them talking about it. The article even mentions the Governor Bobby Jindal of Louisiana. Let's see. He suffered blowback from Republican activists after delivering a stinging critique of his party in the wake of the 2012 presidential defeat, saying Republicans must avoid being seen as protecting the rich and should stop being the stupid party. And I remember that as a big deal, because I thought, if they really do that there's a chance for a Republican Party to survive the 21st century. And the Republican Party and what it stands for, conservatism, there is a real need for it, because something, even socialism and liberalism, the ideas still need something to grind against and to sharpen. I think that all positions that are in a democracy, have a spot there. But unfortunately, this was, nothing of the kind. He has been, this is Bobby Jindal of Louisiana, the governor there, just with their education system, the teaching of the young earth and creationism. He's actually stepped back away from anything to do with the government. Which I think right now any Republican that doesn't have any ties to Congress would be very, very smart to do. So we'll see how that goes. But again, Jindal is no answer. He's just fallen right in line with most of the right wing, religious of the party. So not what I would consider stop being the stupid party. So a lot of things going on, and we'll continue to follow the news here. Very interested to see who's going to blink first, who's going to come out of this on top. A lot of different things going on here. Very interesting to see about how the different parties will come out and who will, if we're going to have a Republican Party. I'm not sure if it's going to be the Tea Party, and I think what the shame of it all is that there's really been no Liberal Party, for some time now, and that is because the Republican Party has dragged everything else so much to the right. So I think even there could be needed a shakeup in both parties. So we'll see how that comes into play. I think we need to deal with the issues head on, though. There was a piece by Andrew Sullivan that I'll have on the link there. Basically, it talked about this hijack from the Tea Party and the right wing of the Republican Party needed to be dealt with any way possible, and that was through the 14th Amendment, and that was by Obama. Obviously it referenced when I talked about this would probably lead to impeachment. There'd be no doubt about it. Something would happen against the president. There'd be a backlash. But I think when you're talking about the economic health of the country for the short and long term, everything that can be done must be done. And he's facing a very similar situation to Abraham Lincoln. And I think that the long-term history will look back at it as such. So that'll be interesting for the historians that this question will come to. So again, that'll be it for the news. You can go to our website, talknewstalksports.com. That's where we're available. You can download the episodes directly there. You can check out the show notes. It has links to all of the different articles that we talk about. You can also check us out on iTunes, the Joshua Brown News Hour. You can check us out on YouTube. Just type in Josh Brown News Hour. And you can also email us. Email us with an article. Email us with something that you'd like to talk about. You can email us if you would like to join the podcast. If you have the Skype set up, we would love to talk with you about any specific articles or topics that you'd like to talk about. Just make sure that you're able to record as well and get that set up. You can just email us with your contact information and what time of the day is best. We normally do our podcast during the night, but sometimes we can definitely change the schedule because we'd love to have some guests on the show. And you can email us. Our email address is talknewstalksports@gmail.com. Hope you're enjoying the show. You can also send us emails with the comments. So let's jump right into the sports here for the day. Let's go over the scores from yesterday. The Athletics losing a nail-biter in Detroit to the Tigers, 8-6. Winning pitcher there was Scherzer. Obviously a pretty questionable call there in the closing innings against the A's, but you have to come back, and they'll be playing again tomorrow. We'll go over that game. Also yesterday, the Red Sox advancing to the championship series for the American League. Red Sox over the Rays 3-1. So there, Red Sox taking care of business. Really just looking really sharp, coming into the postseason well. And they'll be a tough out for either the Tigers or the A's. Really don't see in them being beat, especially with the home field advantage. So we'll see. For tonight, earlier today, we had the Pirates going down to the Cardinals. So the Cardinals advancing to the NLCS, and they'll, of course, play the Dodgers. And that series actually is going to be starting on the 11th. Don't have a time for that yet, but that will be starting on the 11th, and that will be on Friday. So we'll be talking about that game on Friday. And the last game of the DS series, or the ALDS. That game will be on October the 10th, and that's the Tigers at the Athletics. So we're looking forward to that one as well. That one will be in Oakland. So go through a couple other sports stories, other happenings right now. We have NHL going on. Got a couple games into the season. Let's go over the final games from yesterday. So we have Colorado over Toronto 2-1. Phoenix over the Islanders. The Islanders over Phoenix 6-1. Philadelphia over Florida 2-1. Pittsburgh over Carolina 5-2. Tampa Bay over Buffalo 3-2. Nashville over Minnesota 3-2. Vancouver over New Jersey 3-2. And San Jose over the Rangers 9-2. All right, and then for today's games, we have still one going on right now, Ottawa and Los Angeles. They are 3-3 tied right now, 4:32 left in overtime. Earlier in the day, we had St. Louis over Chicago 3-2, and Calgary over Montreal 3-2. So still relatively early in the season for the NHL, and we'll keep an eye on that as the season goes along. So we got a couple of things coming up in NFL news, injury news. Julio Jones out for the season. Man, I mean, this is just such a devastating loss, and for the Falcons, going to be out for the season with a right foot injury. Obviously, he's a huge playmaker, and for him to be out, for a whole season like this, I mean, it's to me, even though they do have Roddy White, who's also injured, we'll talk about him in a second. It's worse than the Niners losing Crabtree, I think, easily, just because of how much of a force Julio Jones is, and for the deep threat that he is. This is a team, obviously, Roddy White is hobbled right now with injuries, hamstring injury, nagging ankle problem. And I mean, we always want to preface that with saying that, the NFL player is always hurt. He's always going to be playing with a little bit of pain, a little bit of injury. I mean, you're always a percentage injured. We talk about that, but this is a team, obviously, like I said, no Julio Jones the rest of the year. Roddy White isn't expected to play even after their next game, which is after a bye. They still may not have Steven Jackson. He's been out since week 2. They won't have him for maybe the next few games as well. That's their 3 top playmakers here. So, as a 49ers fan, it's hard to feel sorry for them just because of the amount of injuries that we've had to deal with. But obviously, you feel for them. You feel for them. So, speaking of the 49ers, the other story is Aldon Smith has been charged with felonies. San Francisco 49ers linebacker Aldon Smith was charged Wednesday with 3 felony counts of illegal possession of an assault weapon stemming from a party at his home in June 2012. So this is, of course, a story earlier that happened back in the summer 2012 that had been talked about. Hadn't been any charges yet. I believe he was also with a teammate as well. And this is, of course, in addition to the previous 2 DUIs. Then it was, of course, kind of topping on with everything going on here after he had gone into rehab a couple of weeks ago. Of the incident. It says, we've been aware of the incident, the serious nature of it. We're all accountable for our actions, good and bad, 49ers coach Jim Harbaugh said Wednesday. There's a due process that will take place. I don't feel any need to comment further on it. So, obviously, if something that was illegal happened and, was Aldon Smith was responsible for that, then he needs to take responsibility. It seems that he's already taken responsibility, and I hope that the rehab process goes well for him. I'm not sure, if I want to make sure that this isn't just a process that is happening and charges being brought because he's already in a vulnerable position. I think that can be sometimes a way to have people just auto agree to the charges. So I want to make sure that it's legitimate and that the due process, like the coach said, does hold up. But at this point right now, he's kind of entered into an area where the stories just keep coming out, and it seems like the 49ers are going to need to do as much as they can to kind of avoid the situation. And I think what Harbaugh did was good, but I think that they need to go a little bit further and just say, he'll deal with it. He's his own man, and he'll be a 49er when he's ready to come back, and we can handle it then. Now, when you start to talk about things getting done in court, then you talk about that's when the league can come in and start imposing penalties. So, he's already going to be in trouble once the DUIs go through in the court system, but now with this as well, it's going to be a hard road back for him, even when the 49ers decide to let him get back into it. Okay, so also in the news we have the story about Rob Gronkowski. Been conflicting reports. The Patriots have said that they had deemed him ready to go over a couple of weeks ago, and now him and his people are saying that it's actually not the case. That he'll be ready when he's ready. Going forward from there, they're not really sure. This is kind of like the Jadeveon Clowney case. I know it's a little bit different in talking about the money aspect, but I think when it comes to the reason I say that they're similar is because I think when it comes to athletes and injuries, that we need to be really careful. And I bring this up not only because of the League of Denial special that was on the PBS, and if you haven't seen it, it's an excellent show. I'll definitely be commenting on more of it later this week, but I would definitely check it out, and I'll have it in the show notes. It's available online through PBS. It talks about the injuries sustained through football and concussions. But again, going back to the athletes and injuries, I think you have to understand, especially, it's harder to understand for the college players, but this is their job. And I think, we often expect a different level, of toughness out of the athletes. And while I think that can sometimes be justified, when people are sick at work, I don't think that there's any expectation that they should be overworked to compensate for that, and that there should be a ticking clock of saying, okay, when are you going to come back? When are you going to come back? And I don't think that when we don't expect such a lax environment, we shouldn't put it back on the athletes just because of their pay scale. I mean, you can have that argument at a different time, a different place, about whether they should be paid that or not. But if they're going to get paid that through their union, through their talents, and that's what the market needs at that time, you have to let them deal with that. I mean, if he's getting paid while he's being injured, that's something that needs to be dealt with independently. That's not something that you talk about now once the ink is dry on these contracts. That's just not something that you can talk about. It's not an arguing point at this point. It's a done deal. That's something that you need to talk about at a later time. And when we're talking about all these things, it's obviously a moot point because there's so many other things that are more important that can be done in society. But just for the sake of argument, putting it out there. So again, if you want to change the rules on who can get paid for injuries and who can say, we've seen that the NFL and its teams are not exactly honest when it comes to making sure if somebody is ready to play or not. So when I hear reports about that them saying that a player is ready to go, but the player doesn't feel ready, I get a little bit nervous. I mean, I felt that way obviously before hearing that report, watching the show, but that just kind of confirmed some things that I think were definitely kind of unspoken rules. Even going to down to Pee Wee football and high school and junior high school sports in general. So. Some very interesting sports stories this week, and we don't even have football yet. So let's get to some football. I actually should say the games, let's say. So tomorrow's game, and I'm not sure, we may be doing the podcast after the game. If you'd like to join me for the game, we can definitely do that as well. We can commentate through the game during the podcast. So let me know. Shoot me an email. So tomorrow night we have the Giants playing the Bears of Chicago. That's the New York Giants. So obviously the Giants not playing well this year. They're 0-5. The Bears started off strong, but have lost the last two. They're 3-2. There's been some talk about Brandon Marshall and some disagreements with the coach, and always interesting things going there. But boy, the Giants have just been playing really bad, and it's so hard to say what has been to blame when you have a good quarterback and that you have a strong coach. But the teams are just putting so many points on them, and their defense is just not showing up. They haven't had reliability, obviously with Eli, with their receivers, or with really anything to do with the running game. Obviously those are really bad things, and then you go, oh well, it's no wonder they're 0-5. But still, you still think that somewhere in there, something's going to happen, and they're going to click for a game. But I just don't think it's going to be against this Chicago team. I think even though Chicago has lost these last two games, I still think that they've been playing well enough to beat a New York Giant team. And I think not only the problem is that they can score against the Giants, but the Giants cough up the ball so much, and the Bears have really been a team known for causing turnover. So I think that combination right there is going to be something that puts the Bears over the top. But what another bad game for Thursday night. Just been absolutely terrible. Everything, all things considered, the past couple of weeks. Last week's game wasn't so bad, but man, this one, if it gets out of hand early, it could be a tough game to watch. So, might need somebody to talk to during that game. So again, if you'd like to join the discussion, go ahead and send us an email. Our email address is talksports@gmail.com. You can listen to the podcast. Our website is talknewstalksports.com. You can download the episodes directly from our website. You can also view the show notes, all of the links that we have talked about during the podcast. Also, check us out on iTunes. Just type in Joshua Brown News Hour. Same thing goes for YouTube, youtube.com in the search box. Just type in Joshua Brown News Hour. You'll find us there. Okay, so again, send us an email if you have something you'd like for us to talk about. We can go in depth on it. If you would like to join us, go ahead and send your Skype information. Make sure that you have a way to record the show so we can get that up there and everyone can hear us talk. And you can also email us if you have just any comments on the show. We'd love to hear your feedback, all right? So have a great rest of your Monday night. This is Joshua Brown signing off. Have a great night, everyone.